In this video, we're going to walk through grabbing Office 365 and deploying that silently along with our image. There's a couple things we need to do first, and one of the things we need to do is we need to go to Microsoft and download a tool called the Office Deployment Tool. So I will give and leave the URL source in the description below this video, but for right now what we're going to do is we're going to click Microsoft Office Deployment Tool and download that, and it's a little executable, and we're going to go ahead and run that executable. It brings up a EULA. We'll click OK and continue, and then it'll ask us where we want to put the extracted files, and I created an Office 365 folder on my desktop, and I click OK, and it tells me the files have extracted successfully. So once again, using the link in the description, go to step 2 and download the Microsoft Office Deployment Tool. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to need to create a custom configuration file, not just for the download of the binaries, but also for the installation. This will also let us choose what version of Office that we want to distribute. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go to step 3 and we're going to click Office Customization Tool. And we don't need to sign in. What we do need to do is we need to come down here and say create a new configuration. Now is where you're going to decide exactly what it is you're going to install and what version of Office you want. So for my example, I want a 64-bit version, and I'm going to go ahead and do the Office Standard, the Office Professional Plus 2019. There's also a 365 Pro Plus and a 365 Business. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the Pro Plus 2019 with the volume license. I'm not going to install Visio, so I'll leave that as none, and I'll also leave project as none. And there's really no additional projects that I want to get, so I'm going to go to the next section, and it's going to ask me my channel, and in this case I only have one, and which version do I want to deploy, and in this case I'm going to say the latest. So this is going to be applicable for the files that I download. The next section, I decide which apps I actually want to choose, and in this case I definitely don't want Groove. I do want OneDrive. I also do want OneNote, but I don't want Skype for Business because Microsoft Teams is kind of taking over that section. So these are the applications that I want. I'm going to click Next, and here I just want the primary language to be English. So I need to find that, and I don't need any additional language or proofing tools, so I'll click Next. Now I do not want to show the installation to the user, so I'm going to turn that off. That's important. And I also want to tell it that it needs to come from a local source. Now this source path we can edit later, but for now what I need you to do is type in /apps/Office 365. Okay, so this is where it's going to grab the files from locally on the client. Now it's whether or not you want to fall back to CDN for machine languages. I'm going to tell it no, and I do want it to pin the icons on the taskbar, and I do want it to log, and in this case I'm going to tell it to save the log files to /apps/Office 365 once again. Alright, and now I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And for the upgrade options, I wanted to go ahead and connect to the CDN, and I'm going to tell it to automatically check for updates, and this is going to be according to what you want in your environment. All right. I don't have to worry about any of this stuff because it's not actually going to be uninstalling anything. So if it says uninstall MSI versions of Office, I'm going to just go ahead and turn that off because it's being applied in the image, and of course on the machine it's not going to have anything on it anyway because I'm applying a new image. Here I want to make sure that I tell it to accept the EULA, right? And whether or not I'm using a KMS or a MAC key. So in this case I'm going to say that I use a Mac, and then it's going to put in your license if you have it, or if you use a KMS key, just turn that on and it'll connect to the KMS server. Right? You can allow shared computer activation if that's the way you do it. In this case, I'm going to say no, I don't allow that, and it's just for a single user. I'm going to click next, and then here's where you provide your company information. So I'm going to go ahead and put Circs. You put your company, and I don't need to put a description. I'll click next, and there's nothing else that I really need to change here, right? So on the right, it gives me an overview of everything that I've checked, and so I can give it a final once over. Once I'm finished, I'll click Finish, and now I will click Export, and that will allow me to download the XML file. In this case, it's going to ask me if I want to do 2013 support, that kind of thing. I'm going to say Keep Current Settings and click OK. I'm going to accept the agreement, and it'll ask me what I want to name this. What I'm going to name this is I'm going to name it New Configuration, just so it's separate from my other one, and I'm going to choose Export, and it now has downloaded that XML file. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and open this XML file. And you'll see the XML file is fairly simple, but it's opened it up in a browser, and I can't really edit it here. So let me go ahead and go to my Downloads folder and grab it from there. And you can see in my Downloads folder, I have the Office Deployment Tool, which I originally grabbed, and now my new Configure XML. Now, when I ran the Office Deployment Tool, I told it to extract those files on the desktop into my Office 365 folder. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this configuration XML file. I'm going to go to my desktop, to the Office 365, and I'm going to paste that right in here. Now, working from here, I now have a setup executable as well as 4 XML files. The only XML file I really care about is this bottom one, which is the custom one I made. So I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to edit it. And I'm just going to make sure that everything here is the way I need it, right? And one thing that's very important is my source path. I want to make sure that my source path is C Apps Office 365, and that is the Office 365 here on my desktop. The C Apps is where it's going to be located on the client. Alright, because I have that source path in, now when I run it, it actually is going to download the binaries into a C Apps Office 365 directory. So I need to create that on my workstation. So on my C drive, I'm going to create a new folder named Apps, and in there I'm going to create a new folder named Office 365. And I'm going to hit enter. Now in this folder is where I actually want all the binaries. So I'm going to copy it from my desktop and put it in here. So I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm going to copy the setup and the new configuration file. Copy that out. And I'm going to put it in the C Apps Office 365 directory. Now my new configuration XML file makes sense. And let me open this up with Notepad. And we can now see that the source path is the source path that this is in now, C Apps Office 365. Alright, we're ready for the next step, which is to download the binaries from Microsoft. And to do that, what we need to do is we need to open up a command prompt. And that's going to be on a different screen. Give me a second and I will bring it over. Okay, so now I have an administrative command prompt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my C Apps Office 365 directory. And from here I'm going to run setup, but I'm going to give it the download switch. And I'm going to give it the configuration file, so that the configuration file is that new configuration XML. So I basically just called the setup.exe. I've told it to download, and I've told it what configuration file to reference When it's downloading, I'll click enter. And from here, what's going to happen is it's going to go out and it's going to go and download all the binaries I need for the version of Office I told it that I wanted, which in this case is 2019. So I'm going to push pause here because the download could take a minute or two, and I will be right back after that's finished. Okay, it's now completed its download, and you can see it brought its log file in, and all the binaries are now located under the Office data folder. Now that I have run the download, it has downloaded everything. I'm ready to copy this over to my server. So now what I will do is I will remote into my server, and this will be my smartImager server, and I'm going to go to Program Files, Circ smartImager. Then I'm going to go to Repositories, and I'm going to choose Applications. From the Applications repository, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the entire Office 365 directory to the smartImager server and place it under my Circ smartImager repositories applications directory, and there it is right in the Office 365 directory. All my files are there. Now I'm ready to put it into smartImager. So from smartImager, I'm going to go Components and then Applications, and I'm going to create a new application. So I'll click Create, and I will name this Office 365. And I'll just put that it was 64-bit, just so I know. I'll click Create. And then from here on the folder path, I merely need to go to my Office 365 folder that I copied over. I'll click OK. In the install command, I'm just looking for that setup.exe file. But I need to call the new configuration XML, and the way I do that during deployment is by going /configure and then merely saying new configuration.xml, and I'm telling it to use the new configuration XML file. I'll click Save there, and once again I just kind of want to iterate that in the new configuration XML file, if I look at this, so if I open this with Notepad, I'm just making sure that my source path, that C apps Office 365, is the source path that makes sense, and as well as the logging path here. And if I look at my application, my Office 365 directory is going to be copied to the C apps directory on the client computer, and therefore my new configuration XML file, that source path, is going to be correct. Alright, from here I'm pretty much done unless I needed to add a compatibility to it. I do need to add it to an application pack, so I will throw it in the default applications application pack for myself here. And if I wanted to order that out, I could either go to my default applications, look at the applications in there and say, you know what, I kind of want to move that up a little bit, and then click Save. Now all I need to do is publish, and that is how I wrap up Office 365 to deploy silently with the image. If you have any comments or questions or any feature requests, please contact us at smartimager.com. And always, if you need any help with anything, support is always free at support@smartimager.com.